Heartwarming discovery, when a Maid's hidden mistake exposed an incredible life-changing moment. It was just another Tuesday for Sarah, the overworked maid at the Maplewood Country Club. As the sun peeked through the drapes of a lavish suite, casting golden light on plush furnishings, she bent down to give the floor a thorough scrub. That's when she spotted the envelope, dusty, slightly crumpled, tucked away like a forgotten secret beneath a velvet-edged bed. Her heartbeat quickened. Could this be something valuable? A treasure left behind? But as she opened the envelope, her excitement fizzled into something deeper. The letter inside was addressed to Thomas Macmillan, a local war hero whose life had ended far too soon. Reading the widow's heartfelt words full of love, regret, and words never spoken made Sarah's chest tighten. A promise that could never be fulfilled echoed through every line. She felt the weight of something profound settle in her hands. This was more than a discovery, it was a calling. Days slipped into sleepless nights, and Sarah found herself tangled between her responsibilities. Ethan, her 12-year-old son, deserved the best, and her aging father, battling dementia, needed her care and support. Yet, the thought of Mrs. Macmillan gnawed at her. Could she keep ignoring the plight of another who suffered, especially when they shared the same small town? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With shaky hands, Sarah decided to find Mrs. Macmillan. Even as she fought through the reactions of the townsfolk, initial surprise turning into murmurs laden with judgment, she let a spark of courage ignite in her soul. The sweet smell of her hopes clashed with the bitter reality of class struggles, and it created a storm within her. The moment she arrived at Mrs. Macmillan's cozy home, she was struck by how the widow's eyes shimmered with both sorrow and a flicker of recognition. As Sarah presented the letter, Mrs. Macmillan gasped, her hands trembling like autumn leaves. Here was a woman burdened by the weight of loss, and yet, at this moment, she seemed to breathe in the essence of a promise long buried. The gap between their lives echoed loudly against the backdrop of Maplewood's picturesque streets. Sarah's relentless struggle contrasted with the privilege surrounding her. But a change stirred within the community. Support began to blossom for Mrs. Macmillan, and it took root deep in Sarah's heart. She felt a rising tide of collective strength from familiar faces, showing up with home-cooked meals and warm words, a remarkable transformation of spirit. Yet, as pressure mounted, Sarah questioned whether her brave decision would cost her job at the country club, the one lifeline keeping her family afloat. Standing at this crossroads, her heart raced. Could her small act of courage lead to something larger and profound? One emotion trapped in her chest kept rising: hope. What if this leap of faith could alter not only their lives but ignite change within a divided community? Just as her thoughts began swirling like autumn leaves in the wind, one haunting question flickered in the air: would Maplewood embrace this challenge to heal or remain chained to its fractures? Sarah's heart raced as she left the Macmillan home, a mix of elation and dread washing over her. The warmth of Mrs. Macmillan's gratitude buoyed her spirit, yet the thought of losing her job loomed like a dark cloud. She could already picture the disapproving looks from her boss, Mr. Thornton, when he found out she had stepped out of line. Still, each step away from the house solidified her resolve. The letter represented more than just words; it was a symbol of connection, a bridge between lives that society often kept apart. The days following her visit were a blur. Maplewood reacted with unexpected enthusiasm. Neighbors began gathering, sharing tales of Thomas, stories Sarah would never have known had she not found the letter. Each one added a brushstroke to the portrait of a man they had collectively lost. Slowly, community spirit grew, transforming grief into strength, and Sarah watched in awe as the town buzzed with life. Ethan, Sarah's son, sensed the change in her. "Mom, you seem happier lately," he noted, eyes sparkling with curiosity. "What is going on?" She smiled, warmth spreading in her chest. Just helping someone who needs it, honey. It feels good to be part of something. His approving grin made her heart swell with pride, a feeling she hadn't experienced in a long while. Being his mother didn't just mean providing, it also meant finding her own path and letting him see her journey. But while optimism bubbled within her, worry shadowed her every move at the country club. Mr. Thornton was unforgiving, his sharp gaze piercing through her whenever they crossed paths. Each day, he appeared more engrossed in the club's reputation than the lives of the people serving it. She held her breath every time he approached her workstation, bracing for a reprimand. Would he dismiss her for seeking to uplift another? Then one afternoon, Sarah walked into the kitchen to find the staff gathering around a makeshift bulletin board. Colorful flyers were pinned up, announcing a community fundraiser for Mrs. McMillan. Shock and joy wove through her as she read the details. Her heartbeat quickened again, not out of fear this time but with promise. This was it, she could lend her hand to something bigger. What do you think, Sarah? One of her co-workers asked, catching her gaze. Will you help us? She looked around at the determined faces, a fresh wave of courage washing over her. Yes. Yes, I will, she affirmed, a smile breaking through. The energy in the room surged, and the laughter and chatter felt like a healing balm. But just as optimism climbed higher, the door swung open, and Mr. Thornton stepped inside, surveying the room with narrowed eyes. The atmosphere shifted as if a chill swept through. The tension was palpable. Everyone froze, uncertainty hanging in the air. What is going on here? He barked, catching sight of the flyers. In that moment, Sarah felt the weight of the community behind her. It was both exhilarating and terrifying. Would she face the consequences of her choices now? Would she have to defend the beauty in her act of kindness? As Mr. Thornton's frown deepened, Sarah found herself standing taller. It was more than about her job now, it was about the hope they'd all cultivated, the love they were growing together. And so, she stepped forward, ready to speak up. But would her voice reach him? Would he listen, or would he shut her down before she even began? Mr. Thornton, we're just trying to help, Sarah found herself saying, her voice steadier than she felt. The words rolled off her tongue, fueled by courage gathered from the shimmering sense of community that surrounded her. He looked at her, eyes narrowing even more, as if trying to decide whether she was worth his time. Help? By raising funds for someone who you all but know nothing about. His tone was harsh, almost mocking. You think this little act of charity will make any difference? What will the club say? Behind Sarah, a whisper spread throughout the staff. The uncertainty was thick, heavy, but amidst it all, she could hear the murmurs of support. Each person was leaning in, willing her onward. We know Mrs. McMillan, someone else chimed in, emboldened by Sarah's bravery. She's part of this community. Thomas is part of our history. Fundraising isn't just charity, it's our way of showing we care. Exactly, Sarah added, feeling the momentum shift slightly in her favor. We're doing this for the town. For the connections we've built and the lives that matter right here. Her heart pounded in her chest, a fierce rhythm of belief and hope. Mr. Thornton seemed taken aback for a moment. The fire in his eyes flickered. He shifted his weight, casting a glance around the room, taking in the faces of his employees, their expressions turning from anxiety to resolve. Let me get this straight, he said slowly, as if processing what was unfolding. You all want to raise money for a fundraiser. From what exactly? You're a country club staff. You should be focusing on serving guests, not hosting events. Maybe we can do both, Ethan's voice piped up from the back of the room, surprising everyone. Sarah turned, her heart swelling and tinged with a hint of dread. Her son should not be in the middle of this, yet seeing him resilient made her even more resolute. Ethan, honey, stay back, she urged quietly, but he pushed forward, undeterred. But why not help people, Mr. Thornton? Isn't that what matters? Our guests come from all walks of life. Helping others lifts us all. The sincerity in his youth spoke volumes, and the air thickened with a tension that mixed with reluctant admiration directed at the boy standing before the head of the club. I think, Sarah said, turning back to Mr. Thornton, that maybe it's time for a different kind of focus here. If you want this club to thrive, it needs to be rooted in relationships, in community. He stared at her for what felt like an eternity, searching her face for weakness, but she stood firm, ready for whatever might come next. She felt buoyed, not just by her own words but by the misguided hope she had laced within them. Don't forget your place, he finally uttered, ice in his voice, but there was no finality in his tone. In his eyes, there was a flicker of uncertainty, as if her words had planted a seed of doubt. The breathing in the room was rapid, everyone was waiting for Mr. Thornton's response. Would he dismiss them? Would he close the door on their chance to shine? Fine, he said finally, folding his arms tightly across his chest. You want to fundraise? Fine. Just know it better reflect well on this club and on us. He hesitated, get a plan together and submit it for approval. A collective sigh of relief washed through the staff, laughter and applause followed his words, drowning out the stillness that had consumed the kitchen moments before. Sarah grinned, her heart light. But as she reveled in the moment, a new fear gripped her. What if they succeeded? What if this brought not just joy but serious changes to the balance of power at the club, riling Mr. Thornton even more? Thank you, Mr. Thornton, Sarah managed to say, her voice barely a whisper. Yet, she didn't feel done. With everything at stake, it was clear this was just the beginning. As the excitement surged, Sarah realized they needed to act quickly. Each second counted, each step forward filled with uncertainty was a step into the unknown. And yet, somewhere deep inside, she felt a spark of hope. The community was with her, ready to stand as one. But how much could she sacrifice for their victory? Would the risks be too great to bear if outcomes turned against them? And could week after week of struggle bring about the change that every heart desired in Maplewood? Next, they had to mobilize the whole town, and that would take everything she had. They gathered in the back room of the club, the air buzzing with electric energy. Sarah stood at the head of the table, the desire to inspire them rising in her like a tide. Around her were her comrades, colleagues turned allies, hopeful faces reflecting their shared determination. They were ready to map out a plan that could change everything. Okay, everyone, Sarah started, her voice steady now, fueled by the promise of what was to come. We need a solid plan. Fundraising ideas, volunteers, and a timeline. Let us think outside the box. Ethan leaned forward, a smile dancing on his lips. How about a community picnic right outside the club? Everyone loves food, and we can ask local businesses to donate. The idea landed with a burst of excitement. Laughter and chatter filled the room as everyone jumped in, tossing out suggestions like confetti. Someone called for a bake sale, another proposed a raffle featuring donations from local artisans. Each idea blended into a vibrant tapestry of possibilities. But beneath the surface, doubt simmered in Sarah's mind. She recalled the tight grip Mr. Thornton had on the club. What would he do if they succeeded? Would he be as cruel to them as he had been earlier? She shook her head, refusing to let fear cloud the exhilaration of the moment. Let us show the community how much we care, Sarah urged, her eyes scanning the room. This isn't just about fundraising, it's about coming together for someone who needs us. It's about standing up for each other. As she spoke, a flicker of resolve lit each face, their earlier doubts melting away like morning fog. Even those who had initially hesitated began to lean in, their hearts visibly opening with hope. Hours slipped by as plans took shape. By the time they finished, a celebrated spirit infused the room, the air crackled with unspoken promises. The picnic was more than just a fundraiser now, it was a statement. It was about unity, about the community breathing life into their collective hearts. But just as they were wrapping up, a thought struck Sarah like a bolt of lightning. We need to reach out for help not just from the club, but from our neighbors too. Everyone in Maplewood should feel included. Let us make this a true village effort. Her enthusiasm was contagious. They all bounced ideas off one another about how to involve the community. More flyers to hand out at the local diner, announcements on the radio. Everyone rallied, their resolve fortified. Once they assembled a comprehensive plan, Sarah smiled and felt an ache of exhaustion tugging at her, but she ignored it. Her heart felt light, and for the first time in a while, she began to believe in something bigger than herself. Later that evening, as she sorted the notes and flyers, the weight of the unknown crept back. What if Mr. Thornton would sabotage their dreams? The thought gnawed at her like a relentless dog, leaving her restless, tossing and turning. "Ethan," she finally whispered, finding him curled up on the couch. "What if we don't get the approval? What if he shuts us down even before we begin?" He turned, his young face earnest, eyes filled with a wisdom beyond his years. "But what if we do, Mom? What's the worst that can happen? We'll still make a difference. We have to try." His words wrapped around her like a warm hug. She believed in their plan, but the fear lingered, an unwelcome friend at the edges of her mind. They needed to act fast, to get the word out before Thornton could make a move. With a newfound steely resolve, Sarah took a deep breath, the determination settling deep within her. As night wrapped Maplewood in its embrace, dreams hung in the air like stars, adventurous and uncertain. But as she prepared to get some sleep, something else pulled at her heart. The thought of Mrs. Macmillan and her struggles added weight to their mission. There was more at stake than just a fundraiser, it was about showing love and commitment to every soul in the community. Sudden knocks echoed through the night, startling Sarah as she answered the door. There stood a familiar face, one that held a secret that could alter their plans entirely. "Sarah," came the voice, urgent and low. "You need to see this." Her heart raced with both expectation and trepidation, wondering what revelation would follow and how it might change everything they had just built. "Who is it?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling slightly as she peered through the door's small glass panel. It was Mrs. Jennings, the club's bartender, her face pale beneath the glow of the porch light. She looked around, ensuring no one was eavesdropping before stepping inside. "Sarah, I didn't know who else to tell." Her voice quaked with urgency. "What is it? Is everything okay?" Sarah stepped aside, her stomach nodding as she closed the door behind them. Mrs. Jennings took a deep breath. "You might want to sit down for this. It's about Mr. Thornton. He's planning something that could ruin everything we just built tonight." A chill ran down Sarah's spine. "What do you mean?" "He's been talking to people, making promises," Mrs. Jennings said, nervously wringing her hands. "I overheard him at the diner. He's got his eyes on some of the local businesses. If they contribute to the picnic, he'll pull their licenses." The blood drained from Sarah's face. "He's threatening them?" "Yes, and he's got something big lined up. I think he might be planning to host his own event that day, to overshadow yours." Every word felt like a punch to her gut. The beautiful dream they had just nurtured was at risk before it even had a chance to bloom. Panic surged as worry creased her brow. But then another feeling bubbled inside her, a fierce determination, ignited by the thought of what was truly at stake. "But we can't let him win," she said, her voice stronger now. "We have to fight back. We can't let fear dictate our actions." Mrs. Jennings nodded, a flicker of hope returning to her expression. "I thought you'd say that. We can rally the community. If everyone knows what he's doing exactly," Sarah agreed, her heart racing with newfound inspiration. "If we can show them that Maplewood is stronger together, they won't cave to his threats. We can prove that love and unity can withstand his intimidation." Together, they brainstormed rapidly. Sarah's mind raced with possibilities, each more dangerous yet invigorating than the last. "Let us organize a town meeting," Sarah suggested, her hands trembling with excitement. "Invite everyone. We can share our plans for the picnic and reveal Thornton's true intentions. They worked deep into the night, crafting flyers, calling neighbors, and rallying support through every connection they had. The sense of urgency felt like a tidal wave, propelling Sarah forward. She wouldn't allow their efforts to fade away under the weight of Thornton's threats. As the sun peeked over the horizon, coloring the sky in hues of orange and pink, Sarah felt a sense of renewed purpose wash over her. The community was everything. She had to remind them of what they could achieve together, standing tall against the darkness that threatened to engulf them. But then, a new thought pricked at her mind. Mrs. Jennings, what if we could find some evidence of Thornton's wrongdoings? If we could expose him further, maybe people would finally see him for who he really is. The older woman's eyes widened in surprise. What are you thinking? Sarah leaned in closer, her voice a whisper of determined fervor. If we uncover the truth, we can turn the tables. He won't just be someone to fear, he'll be held accountable. With that plan igniting in her heart, Sarah felt the fire of hope surge stronger than ever. They had a race against time ahead of them, and the stakes had never been higher. Would they find the proof they needed to stand up to Thornton, or would his grip on Maplewood tighten even further? The clock was ticking, and so were their chances. The wind swept through the alleyways of Maplewood, carrying with it a mix of anxiety and hope. As Sarah pulled her jacket tighter around her, she could feel the determination thrumming in her veins. The town meeting was set for that evening, and the clock was ticking down to a showdown with Mr. Thornton. Let's start at the diner, Sarah suggested as she and Mrs. Jennings stepped outside. That's where he always seems to hold court. If there's any dirt to find, it might be there. Mrs. Jennings nodded, her brow furrowed. It's risky, Sarah. What if we're caught? We won't be, Sarah reassured her. We'll be smart about this. As they made their way through the streets, Sarah couldn't help but notice the subtle shifts in the atmosphere. Neighbors waved warily, their smiles a little tighter than usual. There was a buzz of whispered conversations, an energy crackling in the air. The looming threat of Mr. Thornton hung like dark clouds over their heads, but there was a flicker of resistance, an air of solidarity forming. The diner was busy. The aroma of coffee and fresh pastries wafted through the air, but it wasn't enough to lighten the mood. They slipped in and found a booth near the back corner, just out of earshot from the bustling chatter. Okay, we need a plan, Sarah said as they settled in. If we want to draw out any information, we have to seem like we're just here to enjoy a meal. Nothing suspicious. Mrs. Jennings took a small sip of her coffee. I'll keep an eye on Thornton. If I see him, I'll try to engage him in conversation. You listen in and see if you catch anything useful. With a careful nod, Sarah positioned herself to face the room. It felt like a game of strategy, a chess match where every move mattered. As the minutes ticked by, Sarah kept her gaze wandering, trying to catch sight of Thornton. Then, she spotted him. He sat at the counter, chatting jovially with a few business owners. The way he threw his head back in laughter made her stomach churn. Mr. Thornton was all charm and confidence, but she knew the darkness lurking beneath that facade. Suddenly, Mrs. Jennings leaned in, her voice low but urgent. Sarah, look over there. At a table near the entrance, a woman sat alone, her brow furrowed as she fiddled with her phone. That's Joanna Harper, the florist. I heard she almost went under last year when Thornton threatened her with the removal of her license, Mrs. Jennings whispered. Without thinking, Sarah stood. I'll go talk to her. Before she could second-guess herself, Sarah approached the woman's table, her heart pounding. Joanna. Hi, I'm Sarah. I've heard a lot about your beautiful flowers, but I wanted to check if you're okay. I heard Joanna's face darkened. I'm fine, she replied abruptly, but Sarah pressed on. Please, I know what Thornton did to you. We're trying to fight back against him. If we all stand together. Joanna looked up sharply, her expression softening for just a moment. Fight back. She echoed, a hint of curiosity lacing her voice. "What do you mean?" Before Sarah could respond, a loud voice cut through the diner. Thornton had risen from his seat, causing heads to turn. "Don't believe the lies, people. That picnic will do nothing for this community." His tone was aggressive, but there was an edge of desperation. As he spoke, anger surged within Sarah. This was the moment she'd been waiting for, an opportunity to unite them all against the looming darkness. "Joanna, help me counter him," she urged, gesturing back toward the crowd. "Let us expose him together." But as they turned to face the commotion, a doubt crept into Sarah's heart. What if Thornton already had something planned for this moment? What if everything they were trying to build was already crushed before it even had a chance to bloom? That thought hung heavy in the air, unanswered, as the tension in the diner swelled, poised for a reckoning that would shape the very fabric of Maplewood. Would they find the strength to join forces, or would Thornton's grip prevail? In that moment, uncertainty loomed larger than ever. The air was thick with tension as all eyes in the diner turned toward Mr. Thornton. He had managed to command the room with his bluster, his charismatic smile swinging from face to face, searching for compliance. Sarah's heart raced as she felt the weight of expectation. This was her moment. "Let me remind you," he continued, gesturing emphatically, "that a picnic is just a distraction. It won't fix your problems. Think about what's really at stake. Jobs, homes, the very future of Maplewood lies in our hands." His voice boomed, layering dread over the unease in the room. Sarah could see neighbors shifting uncomfortably, their fidgeting faces betraying their inner turmoil. They admired Thornton's confidence, yet beneath that admiration lay the seeds of fear. She had to change that. "Joanna," Sarah whispered urgently, her breath short with anxiety. "We have to do something now." Joanna glanced toward Thornton and then at Sarah, conflicts flickering across her face. "What do you expect me to do? Tell them what he really did?" Sarah replied, her voice steadying. "You're his victim. You have a story that can wake everyone up. Show them he's just a bully hiding behind a smile." For a stretch of silence, Joanna wrestled with the uncertainty in her heart. Finally, she leaned in closer. "You're right. I don't want to risk losing everything again. You won't be alone. We're all in this together. If we can rally here, maybe that's exactly what Maplewood needs." The spark of resolve in Sarah's voice surprised even her. With a deep breath, Joanna straightened her shoulders, her eyes gleaming with a determination of her own. "Okay, let us do this." As they turned back toward the crowd, Sarah felt a rush of hope mixed with adrenaline. Thornton was still speaking, but now, she leaped into action. "Everyone!" she shouted, raising her voice above the chatter. The diner quieted down as heads turned again, an energy shifting toward her. "I want to talk about what's really happening in our town. Joanna, do you want to share your experience?" "Mr. Thornton threatened me," Joanna called out, her voice shaking but growing stronger with each syllable. "He told me he would take away my business license if I didn't sell my shop to him at a bargain price. I nearly lost everything." Gasps and murmurs rippled through the diner. It was as if someone had hit a switch, and the collective breath held the room hostage. Thornton's smug expression faltered as he realized his carefully crafted control was slipping. "That's enough nonsense," he bellowed, but his voice lacked its previous confidence. "I'm not alone," Joanna continued, emboldened by the unexpected support from others at their tables. "I found this courage in facing him and knowing that you, too, deserve to be heard." "Yeah," someone in the back shouted, a young man Sarah recognized as one of the local carpenters. "This has been happening too long. We're tired of it." The momentum was building. A domino effect swept through the diner as others began to share their own experiences, those who felt pushed aside, intimidated, or silenced. The resistance that Sarah had sensed earlier now manifested in vocal rumbles of anger and resolution. Sarah exchanged a glance with Mrs. Jennings, who was beaming with pride but also tinged with fear of unpredictability. Would this rebel outcry lead to a transformation, or would it unleash Thornton's fury? As Thornton's face reddened with rage, Sarah felt the weight of her resolve. Together, we are Maplewood. Together, we will protect our community. The words ignited the crowd, a chant beginning to rise in the corners of the diner. Yet, amid the exhilaration, uncertainty clung to her heart like a shadow. What would happen when the dust settled? As the fierce conversation grew louder, Sarah realized the confrontation was just beginning. Would this newfound courage be enough to take down the very man threatening their town? As she gazed into the simmering faces around her, she felt hope and fear battling within. In that charged atmosphere, a chilling thought swept through her mind: what if Thornton had a card yet to play? And as the distraction of the diner blurred into chaos, she wondered if they had truly underestimated his reach. The chant echoed back to Sarah, a mixture of shouts and raw emotion rising higher than she ever imagined. Butterflies flitted wildly in her stomach as she scanned the room. Neighbors stood shoulder to shoulder, faces transforming from fearful uncertainties to fierce determination. But amid the love and support was the oppressive presence of Thornton. Even as chaos unfolded, he stood defiantly, hands clenched at his sides. Sarah could see the storm brewing in his eyes, a predator cornered, desperate to reclaim control. Shouting, "1T, save your town!" Thornton barked, trying to drown out the voices of defiance. But each word was met with collective jeers. People were no longer willing to sit quietly. The very spirit of Maplewood revolted against him at that moment. "Enough is enough!" Joanna shouted, her voice rising like a phoenix from the ashes. "This isn't just about me. This is about all of us. If we let fear dictate our future, we lose everything." Sarah felt a spark tethered to Joanna's words. They were true. They weren't just fighting for their businesses or homes, they were fighting for the heart and soul of Maplewood. Suddenly, an older gentleman stepped forward. Mr. Dawson, the retired schoolteacher, stood at the edge of the group. "I've seen good people cower under the weight of threats for too long. We cannot be afraid any longer." Cheers erupted, and for a fleeting moment, Sarah felt invincible. Yet a disquieting thought wormed its way into her mind: what was Thornton capable of when pushed? As if reading her thoughts, the man's face twisted with frustration. "This little uprising is pointless." He spat the words as though they were venom. "You think you can take me down? You're nothing but a bunch of scared mice in my house." "Scared mice?" someone hissed in frustration. "We're more like lions, who know how to roar," Sarah added, her heart thudding heavily in her chest. Each voice was a part of something larger, something growing stronger every passing moment. Yet even as the crowd stood resolute, she recognized the futility of sheer defiance without plan. They needed more than anger, they needed strategy. As voices rose in unison, Sarah took a breath, preparing to guide this collective heart into action. "Listen!" she called out, her voice cutting through the spectacle. "We need to make a stand where it counts. We can't just shout our truths, we have to act on them. We can organize. Petitions, meetings, media. Make them visible. It's time to show our unity in ways they can't ignore." A ripple of approval flowed through the diner as heads nodded in agreement. "Well said, Sarah," Joanna added, emboldened. "We can fight back. Together. Let us meet at the community center. We'll gather everyone and come up with a plan." The energy surged with the promise of action, but just as it seemed their resolve might become tangible, Thornton stepped closer, a sinister smile creeping across his face. "You think your little rebellion means anything? I'm not going to let you ruin my plans for Maplewood." A choking tension filled the air. Sarah could feel her heart hammer in her chest, her pulse quickening. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. Thornton's eyes glinted in the diner's fluorescent light. "You've only awakened the beast, dear Sarah. Prepare for a fight you cannot imagine. Just like that, the air thickened again. Unease lingered, and Sarah instinctively tightened her grip on Joanna's arm. What did he mean? This was far from over. Gone was the comfort found within the community. Now, shadows danced between the diner booths, creeping in with the realization that their fight had just begun. As Sarah glanced back at the crowd, a mass of determination poised at the edge of displacement, a sinking fear hollowed her chest. Would they truly stand together against the uncertain tide? The distant sound of sirens began to echo through her thoughts, a reminder that every battle came with a cost. And in that whispered moment, Sarah knew, the real challenge was yet to come. Would they emerge stronger, or would they be left scattered? The next chapter of Maplewood's story was unraveling, and the stakes had never felt so high. The energy in the diner was electric, charged with anticipation yet thick with apprehension. Sarah could feel eyes shifting, some lingering on Thornton, others at one another, waiting for guidance, for a spark of hope amid the gathering storm. "Let us not forget what he is capable of," Joanna murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. "We need to be smart about this." Sarah nodded, her stomach tightening. It was one thing to rally the troops, quite another to face the kind of man who thrived on fear. "We'll meet tonight," she declared, summoning strength from deep within. "We'll talk plans at the community center. But we also need to reach out to others, business owners, everyone who cares about Maplewood's future." Mr. Dawson stepped forward again. "We need to gather our resources. Maybe we can use social media, spread the word further, make our voices heard beyond this town." His eyes sparkled with determination. "We can't let Thornton close us off." A cheer erupted, but Sarah noticed the unease lingering just below the surface. Thornton was a powerful adversary. That thought echoed in her mind as she began to consider the next steps. They had to be smart, and they needed to be united. As conversations erupted across the diner, plans began to take shape. People spoke passionately about pamphlets, social media campaigns, community meetings, anything to turn the tide. Yet Sarah couldn't shake the feeling of dread unsettled by Thornton's warning. What beast had she awakened? "Let us meet at 8, Joanna said, retrieving a piece of paper from her purse to jot down notes. "Spread the word. We need all hands on deck. The more, the better." "Just be cautious," Sarah cautioned, looking around. "Thornton won't just sit idly by while we rally our forces. He'll retaliate. We should also consider protection somehow." As the diners began discussing strategies, shadows seemed to flicker at the edges of Sarah's vision, a reflection of her own growing fears. Just as they were making a breakthrough, the sirens grew louder, piercing the air as a police vehicle rolled past the diner, lights flashing, creating an urgent rhythm that matched her heartbeat. Was that a warning? The crowd visibly tensed, eyes darting to the window. It felt like the calm before a storm, and Sarah could sense the weight of the moment pressing down on them. They needed to act, but doubt seeped in, threatening to suffocate their resolve. "Remember," Sarah began, raising her voice to cut through the clamor, "we fight for our town. This is about more than just us. It's about our families, our future. If Thornton thinks he can silence us, he is wrong." Another powerful cheer rose, though this time it felt like a thin veil over anxiety. They were rallying together, but would it be enough? The crowd started to disperse, everyone gathering their things, eager to plot their path forward. Sarah felt buoyed by the support, yet Thornton's words twisted in her mind like a serpent. "Are you leaving?" Joanna asked, watching Sarah linger as the last few people began to exit. "Just something doesn't feel right," Sarah replied, her instincts screaming. "What if he is planning something? Is he working on scaring off everyone we're trying to unite?" Joanna shook her head. "It'll be fine. We'll create a web of support. No one can take that from us." "Right," Sarah said, but she couldn't shake the feeling of foreboding. Was she really going to lose everything? With a deep breath, she clutched her phone tight, sending a quick message to a few neighbors, asking them to stay alert. She needed an edge, confirmation that they were indeed ready to fight this battle together. As Sarah left the diner, she glanced back at the gathering crowd, the flickering neon sign reflecting in her eyes a slaughtered beacon in the dark. The cool night air wrapped around her, every shadow stretching like the hands of uncertainty. Did they have what it took to go against Thornton? Were they willing to fight for Maplewood, or would they succumb to the fear he instilled? With each step toward home, the questions echoed louder. What would they have to lose before it was too late? Would they stand together, or would cracks begin to show when push came to shove? As the sirens faded in the distance, the looming uncertainty lingered like the storm clouds above, ready to unleash a deluge. And Sarah wondered, could their unity withstand the onslaught that was sure to come? The community center buzzed with energy, but an undercurrent of tension rippled through the crowd. Sarah stood at the front, surrounded by familiar faces, neighbors she had worked alongside, and new allies eager to fight back against Thornton's overwhelming grip on Maplewood. Tonight was pivotal, and as the clock ticked closer to 8, she felt the weight of every hope and fear pressing against her chest. "All right, everyone," she called out, her voice breaking through the murmurs that filled the room. "Thank you all for being here. Tonight, we stand for Maplewood. We fight for our community, our livelihoods, and our future." As she spoke, she took a sweeping look across the room. Faces mirrored her resolve, but she also caught traces of uncertainty, fingers fidgeting, expressions locked in worry. Thornton's heavy hand loomed above them all. She knew she needed to harness their passion into action. "Each of us has felt the impact of his threats," Sarah continued, her heart racing. "But we're stronger together than we are alone. We can build a movement, amplify our voices. We'll gather signatures for a petition, organize community meetings, and spread the word far beyond Maplewood." Joanna, standing beside her, added with a fire that lit up the room. "Let us show him we're not afraid. Let us make sure every single person in the town knows the truth about Thornton. We've got a responsibility to our families and each other." The crowd reacted, roaring in affirmation. Voices rose, faces lit with eagerness as people began sharing their ideas. Minutes turned into a symphony of passion, everyone fervently working, brainstorming on how to organize rallies, how to share their stories, how to shine light into Thornton's dark corner. But amidst the fervor, a shadow loomed at the doorway. Mr. Thornton himself stepped into the room, his sharp gaze surveying the gathering like a predator among prey. Silence fell like a weight, thick with fear and anticipation. Sarah's throat tightened, she could feel the collective heartbeat of the room. "What a spectacle," he drawled, his voice smooth yet dripping with venom. "Coming together like this, thinking you can defy me, how cute. There's nothing cute about standing up for our community." Sarah shot back, trying to stand firm, feeling emboldened by the energy reverberating around her. He chuckled, but it was hollow. "You really think this will change anything? You'll all regret standing against me." "I hold the power," he sneered, stepping further into the room. "One little phone call, and I could ruin any business in this town." But Sarah looked him straight in the eye, hands trembling but resolute. "You may hold power, but you can't control our voices. We love each other and this town too much to let you crush it. We will fight back." A murmur of agreement swept through the room, heads nodding, fists raised. The tide was turning. Thornton's sneer faded, replaced by a flash of anger. He stepped closer, a thin veneer of control slipping. "You'll regret this," he threatened, voice low with menace. "All it takes is one bad article. All it takes is a little fear to scatter your little protest into chaos." When he turned to leave, the room erupted. "We want to be silenced," Joanna shouted. "We're tired of being bullied. Let us show him we're united." Another voice shouted from the back, and cheers erupted. The atmosphere crackled with a newfound belief as they rallied behind each other. Just when Sarah thought the moment could not get more intense, a young woman at the front raised her hand timidly. If we gather our stories, we could share them. Local news would take notice. If we show them how he has affected each of us, they might finally listen. The room buzzed with excitement. Yes. Sarah descended deeper into the flow of adrenaline, recognizing the possibility of moving forward, of sharing their pain and resilience. Maplewood was on the brink of transformation. That night, plans came together like threads weaving a stronger fabric. The voices of mothers, fathers, shop owners, teachers, and students united against Thornton's menace. They pooled their stories, their fears, their dreams of a thriving Maplewood free from tyranny. But as they moved forward, uncertainty hovered nearby. Would they find the strength to follow through? Would their unity withstand the repercussions of standing against Thornton? The nights continued, long discussions filled with laughter and tears, driving the community into action. Petitions signed, media engaged, their stories told far and wide. Yet, with each step, Thornton tightened his grasp, using every tactic in his playbook to sow fear. The meeting days ahead were filled with tension, their unity palpable. But with every story shared, their determination solidified. Maplewood blossomed into a tapestry of strength, empowered by love, resilience, and community. And so, as the sun broke through the clouds of turmoil, their courage echoed against the shadows Thornton cast. Sarah held on to that promise, the warmth of hope igniting within her heart. They would stand together. They would fight. And they would emerge transformed. And as uncertainty loomed still on the horizon, one thing remained clear: together, Maplewood would rise. Don't wait not even one more second. You need to subscribe now to catch all the incredible stories coming your way. Leave a like right now to feed the algorithm. Let the world see this transformation. Comment your heartfelt reactions and feelings about this journey and share this video instantly. Tag at least 5 friends who need to see how powerful unity can be. This is your moment to show your support and spread hope.